Do you actually have to be on cocaine to be on this podcast?
It's a great day to be a Wildcat!
Cocaine.
Surfing.
What's up, everybody? You're listening to yet another edition of Cocaine Willie. I am your commissioner, Bob Trollsby, and as always, I'm joined by my co-hosts, the good chef Andre Napier and Fireball Matt Marchesini. Tonight, we are here to deliver some football discussion, some football team updates. It's been a long time since we chatted about football, and we have a bowl game to talk about. We've got an edible mascot to talk about, and we're going to share some of our way too early thoughts.
Cocaine to be on this podcast?
New year, same audio issues. Except Chef seems to have internet. But we're going to share our way too early thoughts on next season. And that's what we're going to chat through tonight. So getting into it, how are you guys doing? This is the second time we've talked in the new year, because the first time we talk is actually going to be the second time we talk tonight, but the first episode that drops this week.
That was Inception level, podcasting, futuristic stuff right there. But 2024 Andre, 2024 Chef is on top of the world. It's who's living better than us? Who's doing it better?
Yo, I will say this. I went 5 for 5 in my rec basketball league, so I'm automatically doing better than Chef is. So
listen, that 2 for 5
damn.
was a strong 2 for 5. It was a strong 2 for 5.
Yeah,
I mean, I was one.
Yo,
1 for 3, 1 from
proclaimed
3
best
from the
shooter.
3-point line.
Proclaimed best shooter on Cocaine Willie. Where we heard that before?
I was 1 of 3. That's 33%. That's a lot better than Cam Carter's doing.
Ooh, shots fired.
Throwing shots.
No, shout out to my boy Cam. He's an elite green lighter. He's an elite green lighter. Some days he'll go 6 for 8. Some days he'll go 1 for 9. And I mean, this isn't a basketball pod. Let's stop that. All right, come on.
No, this isn't a basketball pod. The basketball pod already dropped. We are talking football, and for the first time since it happened, for the first time this new year, we're going to talk about the Pop-Tarts Bowl. We're going to keep it fairly brief and high level. I don't want to get into all the weeds of everything, but main takeaways. Cats win 28-19. Avery Johnson wins MVP with a very interesting stat line. There's been a lot of conversation about his stat line and that it was 14 for 31, which at a glance doesn't look great from a passing perspective. He had 178 yards passing with 2 touchdowns, but no interceptions, 71 yards rushing on only 7 attempts. So he's averaging 10 plus yards a rush, which is fantastic, with 1 rushing touchdown as well. So 3 touchdowns across the board, 94.8 QBR. One of the things I wanted to bring up to the two of you, and Chef, feel free to interject here as much as possible. Powercat Ryan Moss on Twitter reached out to the pod and had this interesting thing he wanted to chat through. So he was saying he was discussing the Pop-Tarts Bowl and Avery not taking some of the available scramble yards. Apparently some of the analytics guys prop up the sack avoidance numbers as a signal of someone who is a top tier QB, an attribute of an elite quarterback. So taking that into consideration and then using the bowl game as a sample size, if you take the scramble yards that Avery could have had and subtract the sack yards that Will Howard, does K-State have positive or negative yardage versus NC State? That's a mouthful, and I am not the best person to talk through this in detail. So I'm going to throw it over to Chef real quick.
That's one of those things. That's a lot of analytics. That's heavy analytics. And we're not a math pod, so numbers have never been our thing, really. But Avery showed the poise. It's more or less for the layman, it's the poise that he showed where he knows that he doesn't have to scramble. He could have scrambled for all those yards easily. He could have probably cleared 100 yards. He could have cleared 100 yards rushing. but he didn't find it necessary. And I think that in the long run will pay dividends that where it shows that he won't force the ball in when he doesn't have to. And he knows that he has the ability to run when he wants to, really. So where does it line up? I think we're going to have positive yards versus NC State because, DJ Giddens was running whenever he wanted to, especially in that first half. And I think what happened with his lack of production in the third quarter, especially, is that, it's a tale as old as time for K-State folks. The coaching staff was late to adjust. I don't blame Connor Riley for that because it was working so well in the first half. Why change things up and force NC State to do it? Would you like to see it maybe halfway through the third quarter, maybe change some things up? Yeah, but all in all, fourth quarter, you saw some changes and the production was back to normal. So I think Avery was strong in that game, very poised. And we can get into his stat line a little bit more about the throwing, but all in all, the production and the yards that were available, I think he sees where he could have got more yards, but he didn't find it necessary. If that makes sense.
I think it does.
Well, everything makes sense when you say it.
Oh.
I actually take this question a little bit differently because I felt the strongest attribute that we saw from Avery was his ability to throw the ball away in situations that did not require making, I would say, like a mistake or something along the lines of being in a position where you could potentially get some type of negative play. And as a true freshman, I was impressed with some of the IQ in some of those plays where maybe there was a potential to run the football, but maybe there wasn't. And we see a lot of quarterbacks nowadays playing this hero ball type situation. And I was expecting to see some of that from Avery. And I don't necessarily think hero ball is like a good thing. I think it's quarterbacks who may be above average, but being so much of a risk taker that it can negatively affect how you're going to run this offense moving forward. And I was expecting Avery to make some of those plays. And I mean, a 14 or, he was 14 of 31. You would assume a lot of quarterbacks at 14 and 31 would be like, what the hell's going on here? Like that's a really poor effort. But a lot of the 17 passes that didn't connect there were smart IQ plays, and it impressed me. I mean, would it have impressed me if we lost the game? Who knows? But it impressed me because I think a lot of those decisions were ones that a senior quarterback would make, a guy who's played and started more than one game at quarterback. And so to take that question and kind of how, we look at some of the analytics like that, I understand that. But the fact that a true freshman quarterback did not take a sack at all in his first start, despite having such a strong offensive line, we get that. But it is a very impressive thing because there are not many quarterbacks, I would even say going into a sophomore season, etc., that would make some of the decisions that Avery Johnson made in this game. They would try and play that hero ball, try and play a more risk taker type game and have that bite them in the ass. So, a lot of us probably in this fan base are going to be all over Avery Johnson for the type of game that he had. And it's not the scramble that he made or the back shoulder throw that he made to Jace Brown, but it's some of these like little decisions that keep you in games. It's not you're not putting your team out of a game because of a bad decision. You're prolonging some of the game so that you can move forward to try and win it. So I was impressed. I mean, Avery Johnson, obviously, I think he is the real deal. And I don't think he's even shown half of the talent that he has. And we're still all in awe about it. So there's a lot to like, that's for sure.
A lot of the, where you were talking about the offensive line being a strong suit and not giving up any sacks. A lot of quarterbacks, I mean, one that was here would have taken a sack on a couple of those plays. So it does show the athleticism, and he might not have scrambled for positive yards, but in the backfield, there's multiple occasions where he's not losing yards, but he's avoiding the sack to not get those lost yards. He might not have got any positive yards, but it's a net positive because he didn't get the sack. And it's plays like that. I mean, that's the special part, but the throwing away, I mean, I didn't count them, but I think it's like 5 or 6. And I counted 3 drops and 2 bad passes. That's where it's at. So, I mean, I count those for your incompletions right there, because that's 10 incompletions on, 3 drops, 2 bad throws, and 5 or 6 throwaways. So, I mean, that's just next level. I was screaming during the game, they don't have a guy like that. Not everybody has a guy like that. We have him now. We have him, and it's nuts that we got the dude. Wait till this dude is 200 pounds running around like that. It's gonna be it's a freak show. I'm telling you.
Yeah, we need that body by True to happen pretty quickly here in this offseason. But I agree with 100% of everything that the two of you said. The thing that I liked about how he played was again that maturity in the elite level of play. He played more like a senior or a junior or a sophomore than a true freshman. And when you look at some of the other guys in his recruiting class, including Jackson Arnold, who was the MVP of the same Elite 11 that he was in, that dude had 4 giveaways and five giveaways. Well, he had three interceptions and 1 fumble. What was the? You're muted, Chef.
I think it was 2 fumbles.
I'm seeing 1 at least on the box score that I'm looking at right now. But anyway, all that's to say he had 4 or more giveaways, and Avery didn't feel, even when he was pressured, he didn't feel the need to throw an errant pass. He threw it away. He threw it out of bounds. He didn't end up in a situation where, similar in that Houston game, the only giveaway he had all season was in that Houston game where he just fumbled the snap and fumbled the handoff. And it just, that wasn't a super clean play, but we didn't see anything like that in this game. And I'm super stoked about the future, just because I think we've got a dude who's wise beyond his years as far as football IQ is concerned. And I want to say D. Scott Pritchin had the article that he posted in the K-State Today newsletter. It's a very long article, so I'm not going to go into all of the details, but it was something along the lines of he was a 4th grader or 5th grader on one of his football squads that he was playing on. And the coach gave him homework to try to figure out how to read defenses and all this other stuff. And he's shouting out the defenses and calling audibles in 4th and 5th grade, this guy. So he's doing stuff that dudes weren't even doing until halfway through high school on varsity squads. And I'm just, I can't even contain the amount of excitement I have for him, because I think, Matt, you said it, we haven't even seen about 50%, whichever one of you said, I think it was Chef actually, we haven't even seen about 50% of what Avery's potential is, if not more. The ceiling is the roof.
I would say I learned a lot more about Avery Johnson's IQ and mentality in this game than his athleticism. I mean, I truly believe that. I think he shows a lot of the talent from an athleticism perspective of being able to extend a play. We obviously saw the touchdown run, but he had a pretty key 3rd down scramble, and it didn't even look like he was breaking a sweat on the scramble. So the athleticism is there, but I think as K-State fans, we can be really excited about the fact that you have a quarterback who seems, with a short amount of time, has the mental capacity to be able to audible plays. And I'm not saying Will Howard didn't do this, because it quite frankly, Will showed plenty of mental capacity in that regard, but it's a much bigger difference when you have a senior at quarterback versus a true freshman making his first start in a bowl game that, yeah, NC State's defense this season was a really good defense. Can you say the same about the bowl game? Who knows? I mean, I think a lot of ways, you're playing against a team that wasn't at full capacity and talent capacity, but it was just some of the decisions that were made in this game by Avery Johnson really, really sparked a holy shit moment. Like, this guy could be he really could be the real deal.
But was it perfect? I mean, we're talking like it was perfect.
No.
And that's the exciting part, because he did miss some throws. Some of the drops were on the receivers, and some of them were on Avery, in my opinion. Like the Seth Porter throw to the sideline, I think that's a Avery throw. That's a missed throw by Avery. The one to J-Jack, I think that one is somewhat on Avery, because that ball is coming so damn hot right when he's out of his break. And I think there's some miscommunication on that, on the route, because two receivers are right on top of each other. And I'm recollecting these off my brain, but I know Garrett Oakley missed one. That was a clean drop. That would have had 1,000,000 yards added to it. And we're missing some of the stats because of some of the penalties. So, I mean, was it perfect? No, but the dude's got so much room to grow. And, I mean, it's going to be, it's only up. It's only up, Bob.
It is only up, and just a couple other guys I want to shout out. DJ Giddens had an incredible game. He could have just as easily been the MVP of the game, in my opinion, with how well he rushed. 150 plus yards rushing in a game against a pretty locked down defense from all accounts that we had of that game going into it. Who are some of the other names? Obviously, Jace Brown,
yeah.
BJ Payne and Jacob Parrish. Those are probably the other three guys I would shout out. BJ Payne led the team in tackles with 10. Jace Brown had 52 yards receiving and a touchdown, and then Jacob Parrish had the interception. I guess to kind of move on to this game and what it means for the season as a whole, how do you feel like this bowl game changes what you thought about the season? Because we did our season recap after the Iowa State game. We were all three pretty down bad after that one. How does this change your perception of the 2023 K-State football season?
All in all, I'd hate to say that, but it doesn't change much. I thought the team, everybody's been throwing around the word disappointment. Is it a disappointment? I mean, in terms of expectations, yes. But for the season as a whole, like, did you enjoy this season? I sure as hell did. It was one of the best seasons, like, in terms of fun that we've had in a long time. So the bowl game didn't change any things in terms of expectations, but in terms of fun, it like capped it off. Because the Pop-Tarts Bowl in general, I mean, I don't care who's in that. It's going to be a spectacle from here to the end of time. But with K-State in it, it was just mad fun. It was crazy. I just turned into a British guy. Mad fun, son. But it was all around incredible. The season capped off with the Pop-Tart Bowl champion. That's really all you can ask for in terms of fun. So yeah, the season changed in terms of that aspect because it was electric towards the end, but expectations, no, not really.
Look, you're smiling because that was abysmal. That
was a good British accent, like a street British accent, like a black guy from.
Dude, that wasn't even close to like a Cockney accent. There's no
not
close.
Mad son. That's a mad ting. That's British slang right
That
there.
was more Jamaican than
No,
it was British.
that's Jamaican.
No. Listen to some. You guys don't listen to sturdy rap. You guys are killing me. You guys are
Listen
a
to
bunch
Tiny
of
Tempa, but that was like 13 years ago.
Yo, don't bag on Tiny Tempa. I mean, look, it's a 9-win season. I mean, how many 9-win seasons has Iowa State had? Right. My bad. I think a win at the end of the season like this, especially knowing that some of your top contributors for the season did not even play in this game, provides a little bit more excitement going into 2024. There's obviously some questions, and you look at the game plan and you wonder how we'll talk a little bit, but in a little bit about the offensive kind of coaching situation. And, in the middle of the game, I was a little bit apprehensive with Connor Riley because I felt that third quarter was not called in a way, especially with a lead, how I would have expected to see it. It gave me some Courtney Messingham vibes, very, very much so. But I mean, if you look at the holistic, like this game, there's a lot of positives that come from it outside of what we saw from Avery Johnson. And there's definitely a lot of questions going into 2024, but a win like this does prop up kind of some of those preseason, a little bit of hype from a preseason perspective. I would expect we're going to be preseason ranked top 25. I'm seeing some numbers from a Vegas perspective of, teams to make the college football playoff, and K-State from a Big 12 perspective is up there. I mean, there's a lot of hype. There's a lot of questions that have to kind of make up with that hype, though. And from a recruitment perspective in the transfer portal and kind of filling some of these holes. But I'm excited for 2024. I really am, because this team does have some youth that you can expect a little bit of stuff from. And this was the type of game that you wanted to see some of that youth maybe run a little bit. And we saw a little bit of the run there. So
just a little bit, not too much. They didn't get us, everything we wanted, but
it wasn't the full run. It wasn't the full runs.
No, it was just like it was like a shart.
It was like a shart.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually agree with Chef for once.
And on that note, I want to talk about the coaching staff changes. So we all knew going into this game that Connor Riley was dubbed as the interim offensive coordinator, promoted from offensive line, but still managing the offensive line stuff. There were, at least on Twitter and message boards, would have you believe that Connor Riley's play calling was very average in that game. I would say it was good. I would say he called a good game as a whole. You obviously don't beat one of the top 15 defenses in the country if you don't call a good offensive game plan, in my opinion. But you see last week, Matt Wells, former Texas Tech and former Utah State head coach, got brought in to be the co-offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach, and associate head coach, in addition to Connor Riley, who is officially promoted to the offensive coordinator, not co-offensive coordinator, and offensive line. So he's still going to have the offensive line duties. Matt Wells is going to come in and have the quarterback duties, as well as associate head coach. And those two together are going to be the offensive game planners of 2024. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that shakes out. But I want to start with Connor Riley. And so I'm going to go a little backwards from the outline here. I want to start with Connor Riley. How did you feel about how he called that Pop-Tarts Bowl game? And what did you like about it? What were some things that you think could have been improved from the bowl game?
I thought he called. I agree with you, Bob. I couldn't be negative about that game. I mean, name me an OC that hasn't had a bad quarter, and now name me an OC that on their first time play calling hasn't had a bad quarter. What were the expectations for these people going into this game? I don't get it. Well, a flawless game? We were going to find our guy just off the street like that? No, I don't believe it. So for me, the game was a good game. It was a good game plan. We did, and imagine that he's also hamstrung in his play calling because you have one of the best athletes that K-State's ever had playing quarterback, and you can't intentionally run him 12 times. Like, that's crazy. So now, not that he's not a great thrower, because the game plan was conducive to him throwing the ball. I saw a lot of interesting sets. It was a lot of different formations than we're used to seeing. A lot of H-back with a tight end. And that's without your weapons. So great game plan, great play calling outside of the third quarter. And I think the only reason that it was like that was because it's because he was so successful that he had the bad third quarter. And he went back to that same run. Think of that logically. He's so tied to this game plan that he's had, and it's successful. Why go away from it? Now, could he have changed sooner? Like I said earlier, probably. But we saw into the fourth quarter once he got the ball and he was like, okay, NC State doesn't want the game, so I'm going to take it from him and I'm going to run it down your throats differently, have Avery read option and RPOs. And I mean, that throw fourth quarter, I don't know if that's an Avery throw, like an Avery, like I'm just going to pull this thing and I'm just going to chuck it to my best friend in the world forever, BFF, or was that a Connor call? Either way, it's in the playbook, so I'm going to credit it to Connor.
Oh my God. This is like, is Connor Riley sponsoring you on this podcast right now? Look, I'm gonna say this: 435 total yards. That's a great output in a game. It's a great output. I mean, no turnovers. Also, you're not putting your players in positions where they're turning the ball over. Every offensive coordinator is allowed to have a bad quarter. Like, I get that. I like the third quarter was definitely a frustrating quarter to watch as a fan because I felt like the play calling got a little stale. And you're continuously running these kind of pistol sets, and we're continually running it inside the numbers, and it's not working. Like, it's not working.
Okay, but
And
now play little devil's advocate real quick. It was working in the first quarter. Why were you not complaining from the rip?
Because it's working. That's the point. You're making some adjustments in the third quarter. You're coming out of halftime, and yeah, maybe the first drive isn't working with that because NC State's making some adjustments on the defensive end. Maybe we should run maybe a few more jet sweeps, push to the outside, try and extend the defense, get them in situations where they have to tackle an open space. I don't know. Maybe hire me. No, I'm just saying, like, it just felt a little stale, and you get into the fourth quarter, and you're a VJ Payne huge sack away from that game being 21-21. And it's a little bit of a different ballgame at that point. So, like, I felt it was a good called game. And at the end of the day, there is nothing I felt after that game that would have said, okay, Connor Riley should be mentioned in this job.
So what would have? What explain to me? What would have? Like, was he supposed to was he supposed to invent a totally new offense for us for him to get the new job? Like, what could he have done to say, "Oh, this is our guy"? What did Colin Klein do to blow us away?
I just said there was nothing he did in that game that would make you think he shouldn't have the job.
No, but I'm also speaking for the people that say that. Like, there's people. This is the whole point of the juxtaposition.
Because it wasn't a sexy game. I'm just saying it. Like, if you think about it, about it, it wasn't a sexy game. It was not a sexy offensive game, but it worked. And that's it. Like, it does not matter if the game is sexy or not if you win, right? I don't know why I keep describing this as that, but I feel like everybody's looking for the latest and greatest, like, ooh, this is new. Ooh, like that's what everybody's looking for instead of, okay, what has worked? Like for us this year, DJ Giddens has run the football and gotten 100 yards on the ground for a good majority of the games this season. So why should we not expect that DJ Giddens is going to do the same thing? It's because everybody's like, Avery Johnson's going to throw it for 200 yards. He's going to run it for 100 yards. It's going to be like that. Like that was what everybody's expectation going in this game was, unfairly or not.
I mean,
I'm just
for
saying.
me, that was I agree. My expectations going into the game, I said it on multiple podcasts, whatever, that I'm thinking 200 yards throwing for Avery, 50 yards rushing. That was my expectations for him. He met them. You know, basically, he would have had more than that if they wouldn't have called those penalties. Okay, so that's check one. Avery's production, offensive coordinator that can find a way to do it, it's done. Okay. So what else did we want? He basically called the Colin Klein play. Like that was exactly what Colin Klein would have done. No doubt in my mind.
It would have been, I will say this, would the conversation have been a lot different if Garrett Oakley catches that screen pass, or Garrett Oakley catches the pass that probably would have scored for a touchdown?
Yep.
Or like some of the little mistakes that other people made, would it have been a different conversation because we won by 17 points? Probably.
See, well, let's not count our chickens because that Garrett Oakley drive turned into a touchdown off of the fake punt right after that. But that's not neither here nor there. But what I know what you're saying. There was some, and that's where I get lost in the sauce for these guys saying that it's Connor Riley's fault and that it's not a sexy brand of football. He's not out there doing anything. He's putting the play out there, and the guys have to execute. It's all about execution. If the dive was working for DJ Giddens in the first and second quarter, the way it was, if it would have worked in the third quarter the same way, people would have been like, "Oh, this dude's a genius." It's so counterintuitive, and people go after the OC for no reason. Never going to get anything done. What your expectations are never going to get met, unless he's a 33-year-old former Heisman contender quarterback that used to play for us, and you all love him. Of course, you're going to cheer for that guy over the 50-something-year-old Nebraskan.
I love that point about it's all about execution, and I love the point also of like we aren't necessarily going to see something no one's ever seen before. Football play calling in a lot of ways is kind of like music. Every single note has been played. Every single chord progression has been played in one way or another. You're just rearranging the same thing and presenting it in a different fashion, slightly different from the last person who did the same shit.
That's
and
a great metaphor.
Army's going back to the triple option after abandoning it because it fucking works for Army.
Yep.
So, yeah, you're not going to see some crazy scheme you've never seen before. Although I do think it's going to be interesting now with the addition of Matt Wells coming in as co-offensive coordinator, who comes more from, I mean, Jordan Love is, you could make, I've heard a lot of comparisons of Jordan Love and Avery Johnson in this last week. In a lot of cases, for people to probably justify the hiring of Matt Wells and make it a little bit more palatable. But he's also spent the last couple of years in more of that Jeff Lebby, Art Briles, veer and shoot air raid type of scheme. So what's going to be interesting is to see, is that going to have any kind of influence on Connor Riley? Are we going to see some more permutations or adaptations of the scheme that Riley is running that's more of the Colin Klein type of scheme? Are we going to see some more things that are thrown in there that come more from that Art Briles, as much as I fucking hate that guy, type of scheme?
I don't really, I mean, I can't for the life of me try to figure out what Matt Wells' play calling style is, even though Connor Riley confirmed that he's going to be the play caller, which is going to be weird because, is he going to call it from the field? And Matt Wells, broadcasting down to his headset like, yo, they're in this formation, that. It's just going to be weird. But we have all until August to figure that out. So I'm not too worried about that. But his play calling style, it's going to be good because I think he's a pretty good recruiter on the offensive side too. And he's well respected. So I think keeping Avery happy, one, that's check. And then two, helping Connor Riley with the offensive side in terms of passing is going to be a big help in there because as much as we hated that third quarter, Connor Riley knows a lot about the run game, more than all of us combined. But in terms of passing, having a new voice in there, that's also, they do that in the NFL all the time. They're always subbing people out, changing jobs and stuff like that. New voices, fresh voices in there is going to help a lot. So that's where I'm more of it, not necessarily what he's going to bring in terms of play calling or formations.
Yeah, I agree with that. Everybody is making the Jordan Love connection. And there's probably some recency bias there, just because obviously Jordan Love was a first-round quarterback, quarterback drafted by the Packers, and Jordan Love's having a great season thus far. But I think it was I don't know if it was Ace Edwards from Aggieville Alley Cats who brought up Henry Colombi's name from Texas Tech when Matt Wells is the head coach at Texas Tech, and Henry Colombi is a guy who really hasn't shown anything, and Matt Wells made him look pretty serviceable in the Big 12. So I think it's a really good match because I think there's a lot to prove from a Matt Wells perspective too. He was fired at 5-3, as a head coach at 5-3 at Texas Tech, and you go to Oklahoma for, was it a couple years, and you are kind of an understudy, but you're also a little bit more of a veteran of the college football game too. And so I think Matt Wells has a lot to prove in this situation as well. If you can improve and kind of take Avery Johnson, what he's been able to do this year, and how you can make him a better quarterback going into his sophomore season, I think Matt Wells is an excellent guy that you were able to hire to be able to make some of those improvements. Some of the names that were being thrown out there for this offensive coordinator position in general, I felt there was also a lot of recency bias there as well. You're trying to find the next up and coming guy, almost like Colin Klein, when in reality, maybe this matchup where you have Connor Riley, who's been with the program for a while now and has done, he's done a great job from an offensive perspective. Being able to pair him with a guy who has had some proven success at the offensive position, I think it's going to be a match made really well on both sides. It's going to help Connor Riley improve and improve his standing as a coach. But I think Matt Wells is going to look at this as an opportunity. If I can make Avery Johnson a guy who, maybe he's going to be a Heisman contender. Maybe he's a top he's a top 10 quarterback in the country. That's only going to help him try and get another job too. So, we'll see.
I love the Heisman talk already. This is what Cocaine Willie's built on. Just throwing the Heisman front runner is going into his sophomore year. I love it. Why wouldn't Matt Wells want to get on the coattails of Avery Johnson? Everybody sees it. He's the future of college football. That's going to be important for him. But the other thing, and when people say, "Oh, Connor Riley doesn't deserve this or that," and it is sponsored by Connor Riley. Connor Riley has me on the payroll, but he's one of our best coaches, undoubtedly. His room that he's been coaching is probably the most impressive room in terms of recruiting pedigree, in terms of cohesion, in terms of overall ability. He's probably had the best run at K-State as an assistant under Kleiman. And for him to not get an opportunity and just to pigeonhole him as an O-line coach and not give him that opportunity, would be unfair to him and would be a way to drive him away. He's probably had opportunities to be an offensive coordinator somewhere else, at maybe a lower level or whatever, and be the O-line coach still. So why not give him that opportunity and keep one of our better coaches on staff? That's where I'm at, because we pass over Connor Riley so many times. Connor Riley probably doesn't want to do that forever.
Yeah, and I think a big reason why we kind of gloss over that, if you will, is because we haven't seen a ton of guys drafted yet. But that's because all these guys have been in college for 6 years playing for Connor Riley. And one thing I do want to bring up is there's that infamous photo of Connor Riley in a 110-pound soaking wet Felix Anudike-Uzomah. I think he had a role to play in that recruitment and that identification of that talent as well. And look what he's doing. He had a pretty solid game on Sunday for the Chiefs. I want to move on to the transfer portal real quick. So we know who's exited the program. Pretty much everybody who was going to exit, we've already talked about. I think the exception to that is maybe Kobe Savage, because he entered either right before we recorded the last episode or right after. But all of that is to say, pretty much everybody has found a landing spot. I don't think Kobe has yet, but I want to focus on the guys who we're bringing in right now. Oh, is he going to Oregon officially?
Yeah, he's in uniform, baby.
There we go. So Kobe Savage to Oregon, Will Howard to Ohio State. Doesn't matter. They're all gone. Who's coming in, though? We've got Easton Kilty. He's an interior offensive lineman, 6'5", 305 from FCS North Dakota, the Fighting Hawks, Eagles, whatever they are now. They used to have a very different name. He's one of the top offensive linemen in the portal. He's an 89 in the On3 consensus. We kind of talked about it when we were talking about what we initially wanted from the portal. And I think Matt and I specifically mentioned it would be nice to get a guy who has a little bit of experience on the offensive line, but is someone that you can still develop a little bit, but more of a plug and play type of guy, someone from a lower level like JUCO or FCS. And that pretty much came true, which was great. You've got Travis Bates on the defensive line. He's 6'3", 250 from FCS Austin P. He's 88th in On3's consensus. And then the third guy that we've brought in that's officially committed is Jordan Riley Scott. He's a safety, 6'1", 195 from Ball State, which we've had some success with Ball State in the past. So I'll just throw that out there as well, especially with Kleiman. He's an 87 in the On3 consensus. So we've only brought in 3 guys, but we've had a lot of visits, and that includes a guy named Dante Cephas from Penn State, who seems, reading the tea leaves, it seems like things might be going in the right direction there. We had 2 Texas Tech wide receivers visit, one of which I think we're out on, and one of which I think we might still have something might be going on with Jaron Bradley, potentially. We'll see. And then Malik Benson, unfortunately, committed to Florida State earlier today as we're recording this on Tuesday. So we're not going to see the reuniting of a Kansas guy at Kansas State. The Alabama transfer has gone elsewhere. But looking at what we brought in from the portal, thinking about what we've lost both to the portal, to the draft and graduation, and just looking at the team as a whole right now as it stands, January 10th of 2024, what are some of the positions of need that you want to target in the portal, knowing that we filled some of the holes that we thought about earlier this offseason? And we've had some guys we've swung and miss. I don't know. I'm curious who some of the players are that you want to target, who are some of the positions that you specifically want to target, knowing who's in the portal right now and knowing what we've lost.
Ugh, that's tough. You went over safety, O-line, D-line, including, some of the JUCO guys that we brought in. I think we have enough older guys on the D-line now. I think D-line is settled down. Linebacker, it seems like they were hunting around in the transfer portal for a linebacker, which was a little strange. I'll get to that in a second, but safety, I think we're fine at safety. I would love to see another corner because I think we only rotated 3 guys in the bowl game. Nigel Thomas I think he is going to probably take a step next year. He didn't redshirt, so he's basically a true sophomore. I could see him, but maybe another veteran guy at corner would be strong. obviously wide receiver. Nobody even needs to say anything about that. But I would also like to see a running back. It was a little disappointing. One of those young guns that Matt didn't mention because we thought we were going to see the true run of underclassmen. We didn't see Joe Jackson. That's really disappointing. So could you see what is DJ Giddens? He's a junior now. He's going into his junior
He's going
year.
into his junior year. Yeah, he has 2 more years of eligibility, I think.
Golly, it's
Maybe
so
3.
tough. It's so tough. We go from Deuce to DJ, and nobody wants to play with these guys. The carries just aren't there. So could you see a junior, a guy that's been a backup entire career that's serviceable, maybe come on and know that he's going to get the number 2 carries? I don't know. We have a lot of carries out there. Trayshawn had a good role. Would you like to see him back? The person that comes in is never going to be the number 1 with DJ here. So it's the same. It's got the Deuce Vaughn effect. Those are basically the positions that I'd like to see. Bring Quinshon Junkins in. He doesn't need those Ole Miss carries anymore. Just come here, go straight to the NFL after.
I'm pretty sure he's going to Ohio State.
I called that one. Somebody close to me told me that they're tampering.
Apparently, Chef is shitting NIL money that we can give to players because there's no way we can afford that guy. And I'm not being a NIL hater, but I'm just saying he's going to get a big payday.
Yeah, he's looking good in Columbus. They were looking at studio apartments when he was here, from what I was told.
Wow. Not even a 1-bedroom for that guy? Man, he's going to be sleeping and eating in the same room.
Don't shit
like this hotel room right here. Yeah. Gotta have
1
2
bed's
beds.
for
yeah. I mean, wide receiver has obviously been the more marketable position that we're hearing about. Dante Cephas, a guy from Penn State who obviously has a connection with Middleton from his time at Kent State, is a name that sounds like is very close. Hopefully we could see him commit. I do think if we look at this season and maybe what was a disappointing position group or a position group we maybe expected a little bit more from, I think wide receiver is probably up there. And that's despite having a true freshman come in and basically take the number 1 receiving role from the wide receiver room. So that means that, okay, there's some talent in this room that hasn't shown up yet. Is it some younger guys? Is it some of these older guys? Who knows? But is bringing in another wide receiver, I think, important to show, hey, we need to get as many weapons around Avery Johnson as possible. If the true belief is that Avery is an exceptional passing quarterback, which is everything we're hearing, he's a great runner, but he's got even a better arm. And we've seen some situations in the bowl game where we've seen that. And we've seen some plays in different games this season when he's gotten some mop-up duty where that's the case. He's thrown some balls in there that are very good shots. But consistently this season, we've run into situations where wide receivers did not get adequate separation against some of the more elite defenses in the Big 12. So I think bringing in some new talent to try and just push our current talent is always helpful. I think one guy, I'm not thinking, there are some people that want Dante Cephas from Penn State, and some people want this Alabama, not even Malik Benson, the Preston 5-star kid, whatever. Like, you have to understand, everybody, that if you start bringing in people, there's going to be some names that are like, fuck this, and we're out. And it could be somebody that you like. Like, is it a Keegan Johnson? Is it Jaden Jackson? I'm not saying I don't think Jace Brown's in that situation, but there's some younger guys. I mean, Trey Spivey, we didn't see a lot of him this season. Andre Davis, who didn't play at all this season, but a lot of people were saying he's got some talent. He could bring something to the table. So I think the wide receiver room, I think if you just bring in one guy, one guy.
Are we sure Jaden Jackson's back?
Well, he didn't.
I mean, there hasn't been.
He might be a spring
there hasn't
transfer.
been anything that's. Yeah.
I mean, he can't. He's a graduate. I'm pretty sure he's a graduate.
Yeah. You're right.
He would be a graduate. I mean,
yep. So he can enter at any time.
I mean, he's got 1 year. I'm pretty sure. No matter if he wants to play to K-State or somewhere else.
Yeah.
Right.
I actually I would not have a problem with him.
I like Jay Jack.
I felt this season he improved a lot this season, and he had some sparks where, I mean, there were games where he looked like the number one option.
Yeah.
By far.
At the beginning of the season, he caught every touchdown at the beginning of the game.
He was catching, But then you saw Keegan Johnson. I felt that closer to the end of the season, he was making some plays, and you could kind of see there are some moments in his game where I think he could be beneficial in this offense. I think we're missing a kind of a big body at wide receiver, a possession wide receiver. I truly believe that's something that would be really helpful, because if you have somebody who, I mean, I'm not saying, some 6'7" like behemoth, but somebody who's a little bit taller and can be just a little bit of a difference maker compared to a slot guy and, undersized 2, stuff like that, I think it would be beneficial. But, obviously the next couple weeks are really going to be telling to see from a transfer portal perspective, kind of where we are. As you said, from a running back room, I did not expect to see James White be the second option. But if you think about it, the fact that DJ was in the game for 97% of the plays,
that's a problem.
Is it indicative? Is it indicative of, okay, we truly don't have a number 2 option, or we truly believe that DJ Giddens is going to be a 3-down back for us going into 2024?
He can be, but why? Why do that? I don't understand.
I don't disagree.
Right.
But it makes you think, does this coaching staff feel like he's a 3-down back, like I don't know, Daniel Thomas type situation? And Daniel Thomas was barely a 3-down back because he had William Powell. But do they believe that DJ Giddens is going to play? He's a 3-down back, and in specialty situations, we're going to have a number 2. Who knows?
I think he's a every down back. He's got the skill set for it. My thing is why. And so my preference would be to bring in a transfer running back, somebody that is okay with the role. Because if Joe Jackson steps up, then it's not necessary, because you got 2 freshmen, James White. They seem to enjoy him. He's serviceable, I guess. But if Joe Jackson takes that step, we're good in the room. But if he's not progressing, then you kind of have to, because you can't go relying on DJ to run every play and not expect him to be banged up. We saw Trayshawn Ward. He didn't take all the steps and he missed a game. DJ, he was banged up a couple times. That's why Trayshawn Ward took most of the reps in the Texas Tech game. My thing is, you just don't. That's such a position where people get hurt so easily. You don't want. It's not a Daniel Thomas situation. It's not the mid 2000s anymore. We don't do that anymore. My thing, I wanted to say this real quick before we leave off of the transfer portal. I'm having, not necessarily hearing things, but just piecing things together. This defense is not going to be the defense that we're going to see in 2024. Nate Matlack left because of how the system is, but I think we're going to see a lot more 4-down. I think the players that want to be here, that are that hybrid role between a D-end and a linebacker, are going to get used a lot more.
Tobio
and Sami. I think we're gonna see guys like that where they can't get the playbook down to be a true linebacker, and they don't see the field that same way, but they can rush and they're hell of an athlete. I think we're going to see a guy like Tobio play more of a DN role, but it's going to be a different defense, in my opinion. What I think we're going to see this offseason. Be prepared, people. Just be prepared for it. It's a new day.
And because it's a new day, I want to look forward to 2024 real quick. What's your early vibe check on next year? This coming season. Now that we've flipped the calendar to 2024, and what are some things that you're looking for?
Vibe check, strong. What, Matt? What were you saying about the
Strong.
Vegas? What were you saying? Were you saying Vegas over unders early?
No, I believe that what I saw was K-State was favored to be the Big 12 representative in the college football playoff.
Lord Jesus, that's the ultimate high. Because if you're a Big 12 champion, this is one thing that is going to blow people's mind. In the 12-team format, assuming we're going to be playing, right, in that first round, because I don't know how the format works. I'm just blowing smoke right now. But
the top 4 teams get a bye. Everybody else has to play.
Is that conference champions are the top 4? Because there's only 4 power conferences.
I think that's going to depend on the committee. It could be a really interesting.
I believe
interesting thing next year.
There are 5 automatic qualifiers next season.
Okay.
One of which is G5, right?
Yes, correct. So the highest G5 member.
Okay, but every 12 teams. So if there's 5, it's so confusing. But what I was getting at, Manhattan might be hosting a playoff game.
Yeah, if we're not one of the top 4 teams.
It's quite possible.
And that would be fucking insane. That's where I'm going with it. Basically, my vibe check, if we're a playoff team and we're hosting one in Manhattan, that's going to be a ticket that I might have to cop.
I don't know. I feel like I have good vibes going into next season. I think Avery's the truth. He's him. I trust the coaching staff to fill the voids that we do currently have, whether that's depth or just we don't have a guy there right now, and they can develop talent, right? So I feel confident in the staff to have a good team out there next season. I'm just looking at the schedule right now and doing some fuzzy math in my head, and I'm seeing 9 wins, and that's not counting KU. I have KU as kind of a toss-up on that one.
Where do you have Arizona?
Arizona I have as a toss-up.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. So I think UT Martin, Tulane, BYU, Colorado, Houston, Iowa State, Arizona State, and then like the toss-ups are West Virginia, KU, Arizona, and maybe Oklahoma State. And I think Cincinnati is an easy victory.
West Virginia will be on the road. West Virginia,
it's going to be a dogfight.
Could be.
I think it's going to be a close game.
I don't think so.
I think catching Arizona early in the season,
and it doesn't count towards the conference standings.
Yeah, it doesn't count.
It also doesn't count towards the conference standings, but Tulane's going to be rebuilding a little bit. So
trash.
There's potential that's going to be a nice environment to kind of get
road environment,
the Big 12 play. But Colorado, we're going to be playing. Yes,
playing 2 games at a mile higher above this season on the road.
Look, the 2 games that are going to be scary on the road this season are at Iowa State and at West Virginia. Iowa State consistently, the game on the road at Iowa State is always a dogfight, and you know that, and you gotta. It's always a close game. In the West Virginia game, I think West Virginia is going to be preseason ranked top 25. That doesn't mean anything, but you have a returning quarterback. You have a team that very much overexceeded this season. I think they're going to be a tough game. I think we have to hope we have West Virginia early in Big 12 play. I will say that.
I think
we need the schedule to work out for us.
I think we roll West Virginia up in a big fat blunt and we smoke that West Virginia pack. There's no fucking
way.
no
Smoking on
chance.
Garrett Green.
Yeah, got that.
There's no way.
Yeah, got that Garrett. I'm rolling on a Garrett Green. Oh my god, that is a fire bar right there. No, West Virginia's trash next year. They're garbage. They're gone. So I'm not
Look.
worried about them. I was worried about Tulane, but my fears are Arizona. I'll give you guys Iowa State on the road. I'll give you that one. But if there's not 4 feet of snow, I think we're going to have revenge factor out this world. And we don't have Will Lee on the squad anymore either. So that's 14 points right there.
I was worried about Tulane until Willie Fritz left.
Yep.
And they don't have Pratt anymore at quarterback either.
They
So
don't.
honestly, I'm more concerned about Houston than I ever would have been because Willie Fritz is damn good coaches we know firsthand, and he's bringing in some dudes in the portal this year.
I think Houston will be a team to look out for. Like, I don't know about next year, but kind of in the next couple years. The KU game in Manhattan is going to be a tough game because I will say this. You have to expect that KU is going to be at a similar level that they are this year.
Yeah.
Why?
Who's their quarterback going to be, though?
It's going to be Jalen, right?
He's going to be after game 1.
Who knows? Look, he might be, but you never know. But look, Devin Neal, all Big 12 guy. Yeah. Obviously, like, KU is going to be a tough game. People are going to downplay, it's in Manhattan, blah, blah, blah. It's KU. It's going to be an offense. It's going to be kind of almost like a shootout. That's how I'm seeing it. I don't know. I'm going to just say this. The schedule is very attainable if you can get the right pieces together for this team to make a run. I believe that.
When the games are played is most important. If they do it similar to how they did it this year with freaking Iowa State and KU at the end, those are going to be competitive games. If we get Arizona State at home at the end of the season, we might roll our B squad out there. It might be week 18 for the Chiefs. That might be what we see out there. They won't be ready. Do we play BYU?
We play BYU on the road.
Yeah, at BYU.
We've got
and that's
going to
be a tough environment as well.
I think that one's going to be the sneaky one because I think their team is going to be garbage, but they're going to be, they get hyped for those games. And I think we might sleep. Those might be one of the ones that we sleepwalk through, especially if it's a day game. It's like a 10 o'clock Mountain Time, similar how they did the OU game. Like the OU and BYU, BYU put it to them because I don't think OU was awake yet.
Yeah, I think my biggest concern, honestly, is like the altitude. This team has never played games. I mean, we haven't played a game at altitude since Colorado was in the conference still. So that's going to be really interesting. I don't know, even if North Dakota State, I guess they might have gone out to like Montana to play some games here and there, but I would be curious to see how they prepare for that because that's 2 games that they're having to play a mile higher or higher. So that's going to be fascinating, I think. And it's going to be very interesting to see where those 2 games fall on the schedule because if you're having to prepare for altitude games within 3 weeks of each other or 4 weeks of each other, whereas if they're like 8 weeks apart, like bookending the season, that's a little bit different. You give yourself an opportunity in the first game to know how to prepare for that the next time. I just don't want those to be a quick turnaround, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I'm ready for schedule release just so we can have a Cocaine Willie live where we all meet up.
Yes. That'd be great.
Oh, baby. Oh, baby.
I got a twinkle in my eye. I'm ready to do
it. I will have to run that by my wife, who will be inevitably watching our 6-month-old, depending on when we're able to meet up.
I'll bring my wife that she can babysit. She's got
Let's go. Sold.
She's got expertise in that field. So
sold.
Matt, don't do that. Don't do that.
Wait, what did you say?
What?
The last thing that I have for this football edition of Cocaine Willie is I have to share the final standings for locks. which will also
fuck.
be dependent on what happens in this matchup tonight as we're recording this between Michigan and Washington in the CFP finals. But it doesn't matter who won because I won, and I won the bowls, and I won for the season. My record was 27-14 for bowl games. Chef was 24-17 in bowl games, and Matt was 24-17 in bowl games as well. So depending on if Matt gets Michigan to win tonight, Matt could be second place in the bowl standings. Whereas for the final standings, it doesn't matter. I've got it locked up, and second and third place are already in the books. But I won the season, 63-53 final record overall. Matt had a 59-55-2 record
Let's
overall for
go.
second place.
Don't tell me it's losing.
And Chef is the bag boy for the remainder of the offseason with a 57-57-2 final record.
Woo! 500, baby. Let's go.
Andre's locks finish where they rightfully belong in last.
Yo, a true Kansas Jayhawk, let me tell you.
Oh, listen here. We didn't lose any money this year. None of the Cocaine Willie boys lost any money.
No, none of us lost any money. My wallet would beg to differ. I actually lost a lot of money this year. But I'm still, I don't know. Futures bets, I put a lot of money on K-State's over on win total, and that hit. So I'm still in the black, baby.
Last thing before we get out of here. What was the worst bet that you bet on?
This season?
Yeah.
Probably some parlay.
I'll tell you my worst one. I put a $25 futures bet on Deuce Vaughn to win Rookie of the Year.
Oh, I have that too. But mine was like $10 though.
What a loser.
Oh,
That was a pretty
I
bad
think I
one.
put $50 on Will Howard to win the Heisman.
Ooh.
Ooh,
I mean,
that could
would've
hit next
paid.
year.
Look,
I
that would
mean-
have paid enough to where I'd be upgrading my podcast host to somebody else.
You're not gonna get those odds this year, I'll tell you that.
I will not. No, not at all.
No,
You're-
those odds
we might-
are much higher now.
We might see our boy in New York, just saying.
Yeah, we might.
Yeah,
we
both,
might.
both boys. Might see both boys.
Yeah.
Oh my God! Imagine ESPN would eat that up so much if you had
Wouldn't
Avery
be.
Johnson and Will Howard in New York for the Heisman ceremony.
What about the awkward handshake would be so funny. Just see Will Howard be like, "Oh, you're here? Why?"
I don't know. I feel like they'd be dapping each other up. And
Yeah,
then
they probably would.
who's going to be quarterback? Wegman at A&M, and then Colin Klein's out in the audience. That'd be pretty wild.
He's not showing up to any of those parties. Get him out of
he's
here.
not. No. Well, for all of us here at Cocaine Willie, thank you for listening to the show on your podcast feeds or watching us on YouTube. Do us a favor if you're listening on Apple or Spotify podcasts, leave us a 5-star rating and follow the show. And if you're watching on YouTube, give us a like on the video and subscribe to the channel, even if you're not a K-State fan, even though it's pretty much going to be mostly K-State content until next season. But you can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram or TikTok, or follow us individually. I'm at Bob Trollsby, Fireball Matt's at Matt Marchesini, and Chef is at Chef Andre Napier. Chef,
Cocaine's a hell of a drug, baby.
we are all coke and no joke. Wildcat country.
Fucking right, baby.
Let's ride.
Let's ride. John Moran out for the season.